The Maryland Department of Juvenile Services facing more scrutiny this week after a series of violent incidents involving young people. Experts are questioning how DJS monitors kids on supervision. Now, one of the programs launched this summer takes kids on bike rides to offer them new opportunities and help to alleviate boredom. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost pedaled along with them and asked Secretary Schiraldi what changes could be coming to the agency in the hopes of keeping everybody safe.
This is great.
On the trail,
I'm into bike ride. I have completed more than 100 miles.
The Department of Juvenile Services is helping these kids.
I'm on probation, but I'm about to get out.
Find a new path in life.
Like change, stop doing the bad things and do the correct things. Go to school every day, pass the classes.
But DJS isn't working for everyone. Home monitoring and juveniles wearing GPS monitoring facing growing pressure. 18-year-old Tristan Jackson facing 55 charges in connection to the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Charging documents revealed Jackson's GPS monitor placed him at the scene of the shooting. And he was placed on monitoring because court records show he brought a loaded gun to Merville High School earlier this year when he was 17.
Are things working when it comes to the GPS monitoring system within DJS?
So the overwhelming majority of kids that are on GPS and CD succeed.
DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi argues 90% of kids on home monitoring are successful. But for the kids that violate, Schiraldi says his agency is figuring out ways to make changes.
We are literally saying, what do we need to do more rapidly so that kids know right away, you cannot mess around with this. This is serious stuff. And so that's evolving.
Including possible new protocols to ensure that kids who do violate know there will be consequences. There are 103 kids with an ankle monitor right now and 14 staff monitoring those locations. It's a ratio of about 1 to 9. And despite the Brooklyn Homes example, Schiraldi says he believes his agency is adequately staffed to keep track of everyone. In light of more and more young people committing crimes like carjacking, Mayor Brendan Scott calling for a rebuild of the juvenile justice system. A rebuild of DJS is not something Schiraldi will commit to entirely.
Would you agree with that?
The mayor said a lot of things in that quote.
But does it need to be rebuilt like he said?
Rebuilt, it depends on what you mean by rebuilt. So I don't want to sort of pick away the mayor's description. We need to improve CD, we need to improve conditions in our facilities. We need to focus on the kids that are involved in gun violence most. That's really our biggest challenge.
Addressing kids and guns is on the minds of lawmakers too and will likely be a priority for the upcoming General Assembly session. But before any legislation, Schiraldi says the agency is expecting to make announcements in September surrounding new ways to focus on juvenile gun violence. Touting Mayor Scott's group violence reduction strategy in some areas of the city, Schiraldi says,
we're going to replicate that and start to have a great focus with law enforcement and prosecutors and community on the kids most at risk of gun violence.
The city's GVRS facing staffing concerns already as it expands into other police districts in Baltimore. Given the increased focus on juvenile offenders, some are calling for changes to the current juvenile justice laws, including the Juvenile Restoration Act, which prevents some kids under 13 from facing charges for certain crimes. Like an 11-year-old, Fox 45 News obtained police reports for showing he had been picked up by Baltimore County Police 13 times since May 31st for stealing cars, each time released to his parents without charges.
Are those laws making it more difficult to get a handle on some of this behavior?
Again, I can't talk about an individual kid's case. When I came on, there was a lot of discussion amongst law enforcement that you cannot do anything with somebody under the age of 13, which actually is not true.
Schiraldi noting services can be offered to kids without charges and a child in need of supervision petition can be filed. But those are voluntary.
Do you think that they need to be tweaked and amended?
I'm gonna stop the meeting now and have hot dogs.
Okay.
Schiraldi not committing to backing law changes while the debate surrounding how to get a grip on this juvenile crime crisis continues. In St. Mary's County, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Secretary Schiraldi says the agency is working to fill a number of open positions in the department. He says DJS has gone from an 18% vacancy rate to about 7%, which helps alleviate forced staff over time and creates a better environment for kids inside their facilities. Well, after the report on the 11-year-old surfaced, Fox 45 News sent questions to every state's attorney's office in Maryland, asking for their reaction to the report, their thoughts on juvenile crime this summer, and whether now is the time to call a special session to address youth crime. Calvert County State's Attorney Robert Harvey says nothing surprises him anymore when it comes to criminal justice. He says there are few consequences in the juvenile system and offenders know it. Wicomico County State's Attorney Jamie Dykes echoed those concerns, saying there are no meaningful consequences for nonviolent offenses. She believes it is time for a special session. Now, Pastor P.M. Smith has spent time working with young people in Baltimore. He says the governor and lawmakers need to take specific action to curb juvenile crime.
Total culpability is on the legislature because they could do something. They have the authority. They just won't. Our governor could call a special session. He has authority. He just won't. There will be no accountability. I don't care how much the mayor talks about it. I don't care how much Mr. Moore talks about it. I don't care how much the legislators talk about it, Mr. Ferguson or Ms. Jones, until you exercise the authority that you have to curb that behavior. Maybe not change it, but curb it. So there's blood on their hands, whether it's the young person dying or the young person injuring and killing somebody else.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the General Assembly is responsible for the surge in violent juvenile crime? So far, 97% of people who voted say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.